Hey guys, People here. Today we're going to be taking a look at the new Japanese Tier 6 premium battleship, the Ashitaka. Here you can see my Takagi build on the screen. This is a build I've been experimenting with a bit. I do have Jojo, the French battleship commander, leveled up to level 11 in anticipation of the French battleships dropping next Monday. So I've been experimenting with him a little bit on the Japanese battleships. Some of those ships have quite a bit of a drop off in pen at distance, so I've been checking out that build. I think if you were going to design a build specifically for this ship, that would be a pretty good one. We'll talk about the shell characteristics for a bit, but penetration is kind of a weakness for this Ashitaka. Now I'll be comparing this ship to the Mutsu a little bit, the Tier 5 Japanese premium battleship that came out a couple, 2-3 weeks ago. All of this ship, the Ashitaka, the Mutsu, both have 410 caliber guns, which is the same as the Nagato and the Amagi, the Tech Tree ships. But the difference is the Ashitaka and the Mutsu have like an earlier version of the shell. It's got weaker penetration, which makes it kind of a hard ship to use unless you really understand a fair amount of game mechanics. You really can't be shooting for waterline citadels against battleships or really hitting well-armored parts of battleships, and you're going to get a lot of shatters and ricochets and stuff like that. It's kind of a weird dynamic where you have these really high caliber guns which potentially can overmatch well-angled targets, but against like well-armored targets are going to have poor success. So I don't know. I'm not going to officially recommend this, but it's almost sometimes better to not angle as well against this ship and have it hit you in like the broadside, the well armored parts of the ship on the sides, as opposed to taking it in the nose. Like you can see, if I don't know if I shoot one in this game, but Baoan, Colorado's, for instance, I don't have any problems wrecking those ships, but like a broadside Colorado, you'd have a lot harder time, at least if you're shooting waterline shots, to put up some big damage on those salvos. So very strange gun characteristics in terms of that. Aside from the wonky gun characteristics, this ship is pretty poorly armored. In fact, we don't have armor views, so it's tough to say this part of the ship, or compare this part of the ship to that part of the ship, whatever. But just looking at the highest armor values, it's 330 is what's listed. That's what you find on like the Tier 5 battleships, a lot of them. And this is the deck armor, I think, is the same as the Mutsu, which means that pretty much all the cruisers that you're going to run into can penetrate your deck with HE shells. So not only can they get fire chances going on you, but they'll also be landing damage with those HE shells. So durability-wise, the ship is pretty suspect. It's actually kind of middle of the pack with HP 59,400, but the armor is really weak. And like I said, if I haven't actually gotten HE spammed yet, but I'm aware of the weakness, and as more and more people are aware of it, the Ashitaka is going to be susceptible to HE spamming attacks. Mobility is pretty good, though. On my build, I got 28 kilometers. I think base, it's 30 kilometers, which is not too bad for a battleship. Turn radius is atrocious. I think it's the worst out of all we have. It's 870. Rudder shift is kind of middle of the pack, so you're going to have some issues with the turns. It's just going to be something you're going to have to keep in mind. But all in all, this ship is it's got a lot of downsides. I'm not really sure what the strength is. It has 2 more turrets than the Nagato. I'm finding it more accurate than Nagato, but I've played this ship more recently than I have. I've played roughly 10 games today in this ship. I've played the Nagato maybe 10 times over the last 2 or 3 months, so this one's a little more fresher in my mind. And I have recently upgraded Cunningham, and that might be boosting my accuracy a little bit compared to what I remember the Nagato as. But accuracy-wise, what you're seeing on the screen, you do have to keep in mind, I got a level 12 Takagi with a accuracy build in mind, and then I do have Cunningham inspiring him. But I'm not having any problems hitting the part, where I'm trying to aim. That's not an issue with the ship. It's mainly penetration and, dealing with the armor values that you're going to be finding at tier 6. So, I mean, gun characteristics, they're pretty comparable to the Nagato. The Nagato has slightly better range in my build. This one has slightly better reload, slightly better traverse, whatever. But, I mean, it's pretty similar feel in terms of the Nagato. So, it's kind of bizarre. I mean, the Mutsu has similar issues. It's kind of a squishy ship with weird penetration, but being a tier 5 running Nagato guns, with poor penetration is a little bit different than being at tier 6 with, Magi guns with poor penetration, just because the armor values tend to be a bit better, and, in general, the aiming of your opposing players is going to be a little bit better the higher up you go. So the Mutsu, I'm kind of on the fence on whether I like that one or not. It's kind of random how it's going to work. This one's a pretty hard ship to do well. I think this ends up being my highest damage game out of the ones that I've played thus far. I mean, you can do alright on it, but to be able to consistently do it, you need a little bit of luck, and you need to be positioning yourself where you're not going to be the main focus of the enemy, because if you are, you're not going to stand up to these tier 6 and 7 battleship guns. They can just pretty much destroy you without a whole lot of problems. So for this game on Trident, I'm kind of taking a centralized position. I like to put my battleships fairly central in this map. It allows you to kind of reach out and target the majority of the map, and you can kind of keep an eye on what needs attention in terms of how your team's doing. Now in this particular game, my team's extremely heavy on the west side, and it's been kind of obliterated on the east. We were pushing back kind of towards our base. And there was an example, that Ashitaka on that side there, even though he's well angled, hitting him in that side, I think the 410's kind of overmatched the side armor there. Keep in mind that's a relatively lightly armored battleship, so, had he been broadside and I tried to shoot him belt arm, maybe using that ship isn't the best example, but belt armor against like a Colorado that's fully broadside, you're not going to get a lot of great pens on that. But angled Ashitaka, for instance, or angled ships, if you're shooting upper hull, trying to hit some of the superstructure, the angle is kind of less important because of the caliber or size of your guns. So you do got to keep that in mind when you're playing with the ship and against it. So at this point in the match, I'm just kind of trying to slow their kind of aggressive push into our base. I'm hoping that the team to my, the west side of the map is going to kind of turn around and support us a little bit. Whether or not that's going to happen, I don't know. But, we do have to deal with this island, unfortunately. Again, I'm not really getting shot at a whole lot here, and that's just because, whether intentionally or not, I've heretofore had ships on my team that have primarily been in front of me. Now, it's kind of weird. The pen... There's another Citadel. I think that's the second Citadel. And that's what I'm talking about with the Ashitaka. Like, that one's broadside. It does hit a waterline Citadel. But keep in mind, that's got basically tier 5 armor. This ship does alright if it's up tier, i.e. in a game that's tier 5/tier 6. I haven't had much success personally in tier 6/7 games. And, just dealing with the more heavily armored battleships leads, to that result. Got Eisenhower here. We're just going to take some long shots. Accuracy-wise, long range, this doesn't have a whole lot of problems. I've been provided charts by JT on my Discord. He's done a fair amount of research and provided a lot of useful info for me. Looking at this, it kind of starts off middle of the pack in terms of penetration at close range, and then at long range, it ends up being like bottom of the pack, so longer ranges, you're going to continue to have problems penetrating armor. There's no point in not taking the shots if that's all you really have, but you just have to keep that in mind. Like, ideally, you'd want to get kind of closer range with the ship, but then you get into the problem where, because of your weak armor on the ship, you're not going to be able to really brawl very successfully against a lot of these ships. So it's kind of a situational ship in that regard. But both the Ashitaka and the Mutsu are kind of in this weird spot where, like, Japanese battleships, in my opinion, have very good guns, kind of up and down the line. And they're kind of terror-inducing if run properly for enemy players. These ones are kind of bizarre, though. They're kind of out of place because they're shifted down, a tier, essentially, and so they're kind of less effective guns, which kind of removes the strength of the Japanese battleships from these particular ships. I thought the Mutsu was slightly better, just because, again, you're playing lower tiers, but this kind of has the same exact problems. It has the same penetration as the Mutsu, but again, you're getting higher armor values against tier 7s, and the armor, which looks to be roughly the same as the Mutsu's, is going against higher tier guns in this instance. So, I don't really understand what the point of this ship is. I can't really recommend this one for you guys. If you're a hardcore Japanese battleship fan, I want to say you would like it in that case, but again, it's just it doesn't have the typical Japanese battleship characteristics that a lot of them do that kind of make them fun ships to play. So here, this Akatsuki, we've hit him multiple times. Look on the map, I got this Mayhan by me here. I'm forced to defend myself against this guy. The Mayhan is playing, I'm going to start yelling at him and pinging at the screen here. This is why I don't use headsets when I play randoms, because I would be really ripping into this guy. But he's content to let me die. We actually got it down to 2v2, which I think we probably could have won this game here had he just decided to shoot this ship here, but he absolutely refuses to.
It irks me to no end when you see Japanese DDs that refuse to shoot their guns, but you can kind of understand why they don't, just because the early ones have really bad guns in general. But a Mayhan, USN destroyers, that's all that ship is supposed to be doing is shooting his gun, so kind of frustrating there, but not a lot I can really do about it, unfortunately.
And then as I watched the game finish, he was just kind of content to do donuts or figure out how to steer the ship. I don't know what was going on with this guy. Anyway, this is kind of high-end damage in terms of this ship. I wouldn't expect these results very often, especially if you're going to be playing a lot of Tier 7 games. This is more anomalous than, to be expected. So I'm not going to put a strong recommendation on this. I'm probably going to just give it a pass. This isn't the best premium in my opinion. But if you have other thoughts on it, let me know in the comments. I'd love to get some feedback on the ship from other people who are playing it. So that's going to do it for this one, guys. I hope you did enjoy it. If you did, please hit the thumbs up. If you're new to the channel, you should consider subscribing. I got a lot of World of Warships coming all the time. Questions for me, comments, leave them below. I'd love to hear from you guys. And we'll see y'all later. Alright, peace.